What's up, guys? Welcome to the Peer Review Podcast. My name is Kaleb Davis.
And my name is Brett Sherwood, and we have some notes.
So today we kind of have a quick hitter for you guys. We're going to be covering a few topics. So I'm going to name those real quick. We're going to start with the Suns, and we're going to talk about their hot streak so far because they started the season 6-1, so very impressive. And then we're going to move on to the Bucks and talk a bit about how they have been as a team. They've started their season 1-6, so completely opposite of the Suns. And then we're going to move over to the Cavs and just kind of bounce back on them and kind of talk about, are they the real deal or not? Because they're 8-0 right now, and they look like they are off to the races for the playoffs. And then we're going to end off with a little bit of football. We're going to talk about the Lions and our trade for Za'Darius Smith and kind of what we think about that trade and kind of how it's going to benefit the Lions overall. So I'll go ahead and kick us off with our first topic as far as the Suns and their 6-0 record. And I just want to start by saying 6-1 record, excuse me. But I just want to start by saying I think that their momentum going into the season was very unexpected. Me personally, I didn't have them as one of those top teams coming into the NBA season. Like they finished, I think, sixth last season. They weren't a bad team by any stretch, but I didn't expect for them to come out guns blazing like this. I think if you look at their squad, they had their rookie Ryan Dunn, and I think he's been their biggest godsend so far this season. He is a beast on the defensive end. He's 6'8", 216 pounds, and he has a 7'1" wingspan. So he's just another wing that they have out there that they didn't really have last season. Like, yes, they had Royce O'Neal, but he's a little smaller, a little more frail. Like Ryan Dunn is a big body. Like he was guarding like LeBron in Lakers games and doing a good job. He's just been guarding all those big forwards, and he's been great. He's been hitting his threes, which was kind of a question mark for him coming into the season. He's shooting about 35.5% from three, but the Suns just didn't have a perimeter defender like him. And then the next thing that I've kind of noticed with them is their new offense under Mike Budenholzer. He has them moving the ball a lot more, and like there's a lot more possessions where everyone touches, and they're just attempting more threes. They're 10th in assists this year, and then as far as the 3-point aspect, last season they were towards the bottom of the league in 3-point attempts, 3-point attempts and makes. So last season they were 23rd in 3-point makes and 27th in attempts. And this season, albeit it is early, they're at 12th in 3-point makes and 11th in attempts. So that kind of just shows you where they are overall. But I'll throw it back to you, Brett. Pause. But what do you think about like how the Suns have played and kind of their overall projections for this season?
Yeah, I, you know, people didn't think that the experiment would work last year. I was definitely one of those people with the Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, and um, Kevin Durant thing. But even in the twilight years of his career, I think Kevin Durant is still a perennial talent and a top 10 player in the league. A very efficient scorer from all three levels of the court, and you pair that with the star entering his prime and Devin Booker, and a great third option in Bradley Beal, and like you said, some great new additions on the bench that they have, or just like role players in general that they have with Ryan Dunn. I think that they are poised to compete in the West and in a lot better position than they were around this time last year. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them finish in the upper half of that of the standings of the West. Somewhere like maybe like 5-4 range. But we'll see where it all shakes up for the rest of the season. It is a long season. They've only been at it for a couple of weeks here, but I'm liking the way they're looking so far. And like you said, they're moving the ball great. I think they're a lot more efficient offensively under this new offense. I think it fits their personnel a lot better than what they were trying to do previously. And yeah, I'm excited to see what they can do under this new regime, and looking forward to seeing more from them in the future.
Yeah, and just one more thing to add. I think the big emphasis on 3-pointers this season for them has been a great addition because they have a lot of great shooters, and I think you have to utilize, like, to maximize the skill sets that you have available. You should be shooting more threes if you have a bunch of good shooters, so it only makes sense. And one more fun fact, Royce O'Neal is shooting 50, 40, 90 on the season, which is kind of, it's still early, but he's averaging about 10 points shooting 50, 40, 90. So that was just something cool I came across while doing a little bit of research. But on to our next point. the Bucks are 1-6 on the season. And I'm gonna start this one. I'm gonna pose a question to you, Brett. What have you noticed? Like, what do you think has been causing their losses? And I guess, do you think they're gonna turn it around? Like, do they need to blow it up? Is it too soon to tell? What do you think?
Yeah, I think honestly, they're just not getting enough from the role players. I think Gary Trent Jr. has been struggling. He's averaging just like 9 points a game, and he's only hitting his shots at a 30% clip and like 25% of his threes. And up to they're expecting to get a shooter out of him, somebody that could give you that 3-and-D aspect out of his game. And the slow start, I think, has been hindering them greatly. I think Pat Connaughton has also been struggling. He's only hitting 26% of his threes. I mean, at the end of the day, right, it's basketball. If your guys that you're passing it out to when like Giannis is getting double teamed, if they're not going to hit their threes, if they're not going to hit their shots at an efficient clip, you're going to lose a lot of games. That's just kind of the way it goes. And I think, you know, I mean, even Brook Lopez is struggling where he used to be where he had involved his game from his time on the Nets to be a better shooter, but he's not shooting that well right now. I think this is honestly, they just got a lot of guys in a slump. And I think that it's not even just those three guys, just in general. The chemistry between Lillard and Giannis also hasn't been the greatest so far to start the season. And I think they still have to work those kinks out. And again, I think it falls on coaching too. Like, people coming into the season were not Doc Rivers believers, and he hired like Darvin Ham as his assistant coach, like that. Like, just on paper, like, you already know that is not going to bode over well, especially when like there needs to be some sort of like game plan in place in order to use a player like Giannis's full potential to kind of hide his weaknesses, like with his outside jump shot. So I think like it's like a combination of a lot of things, really, but mainly I think it's like the shooting and efficiency and like the coaching scheme.
I just want to start, just so you guys are aware, they're the worst team in the league right now. And I think if you asked anyone at the beginning of the season, what do you think of a Bucks team led by Dame and Giannis, you expect them to at least be in the mix.
Competitive.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
they've been getting, albeit a few of their games they've been lost by game winners, but they've been getting destroyed. And I think the biggest thing to point to is their defense. They've been horrible. They've been one of the worst perimeter defending teams in the league. They've been horrible on the glass. They're 20th in the league in rebounding right now. They're 29th in steals. And then on the offensive end, they're 27th in assists per game. So they're not passing the ball. They're not rebounding. They're not guarding. They're 22nd in the league as far as like their defensive rating, which is sitting at 117.3. So they're allowing on average about 117 points per game, which is just not going to cut it at all. And I just want to say their one win this season. So really, they'd be 0-7 if things fell out how they should. But their one win this season was against the Sixers without Paul George or Joel Embiid, and they like barely won that game. So it's just been surprising. And the thing that's like confused me the most is Dame and Giannis have been playing good, like really good. Like Dame's been horrible on the defensive end, but as to be expected, I don't think he'll ever give a shit on that end. But Giannis is averaging 31 points per game, 12.3 rebounds, and 6.3 assists. So like MVP level numbers. And then Dame is averaging 27.6 points per game, 6.7 assists, and he's shooting 39% from three on 10 attempts. And he's played every single game this season so far. So it's just shocking to say the least. And I think obviously Chris Middleton has been injured, and he's obviously going to give them that spark when he's exerted back into the lineup, but he doesn't help the defensive end. And yeah, he was amazing in the playoffs this last season, but I don't think he's going to fix their problems. Scoring hasn't been the biggest issue for them. It's more so, like I said, defending. And I think that just comes down to their roster makeup. They're slow on the perimeter. Their best perimeter defender, I'd say, like, I guess you could point to maybe DeLon Wright or Gary Trent, I guess. But those aren't household names. Those aren't names that you're really like, that's not, if you want to be a serious contender in the league, they can't be your best perimeter defenders. Like, that's not going to get it done against guys like Tyrese Maxey. You're going to get burned by guys like Kyrie. Like, he's in the other conference. But just saying, like, guards, if you can't guard, like you're gonna lose a lot of games. And then the other thing is they're old. They were old last year, and everyone on the team got a year older. Like Brook Lopez is 36, he's slowing down. Giannis is getting older. Dame's getting older. Darvin Ham brought over Torian Prince. They're having the same issues that they had with the Lakers. He's a 10 to 20 minute bench guy that they're playing 30, 40 minutes a game. So you're going to see some diminishing return. And if you know me, I spoke on the Lakers a lot last season. So I got to see it close up and personal. And it's funny to see Bucks fans going through the same struggles. But yeah, I don't really see a way for them to turn this around. Like you can tell, like the way Doc Rivers answers and a lot of his pressers, like they haven't been good since he started. They've been a very mediocre team since he's taken over. And I just don't see a way unless they make some type of blockbuster trade, but they don't have assets. I don't see a way for them to remedy the situation. Like the only thing that comes to mind, maybe having a guy like Drew Holiday, that might be a good piece, to pick up and have him in there to play alongside Giannis and Brook. But that ship has sailed. So that's all we got with the Bucks. I guess keep them in your prayers, but the future is looking very bleak. But
Indeed.
moving forward, we wanted to talk a little bit about the Cavs very quickly. They're still 8-0 with the best record in the league next to the 7-0 Thunder. And I guess I'll take this one to start us off. Some things that I've noticed as far as like their key contributors this season, they're just receiving a lot more help from guys like Darius Garland and Evan Mobley and Jared Allen. But specifically Darius Garland, he's just been playing a lot better this year. He's shooting 52.5% from the field, which is up from last year by about 7%, and then 42.5% at three. So those are amazing numbers. And I think the biggest thing with him is he's just not injured. Like he was hurt a lot last year, and he was always having to play himself back into rhythm, play himself back into shape. And if you've ever been injured and tried to return in a sport or just anything in general, it's difficult. So I cut him some slack there, but just to I guess emphasize how good he's been this season, he just went toe to toe with Dame in their victory. What was it, Monday? Dame had 36, Garland had 39, and he went 7 from 11 from three. And it felt like every time Dame hit a big shot, Garland was right there to match him. And I don't know if those are signs to come to show that he has made a leap, but it's a great thing for this team. And I think the next biggest thing for as far as the Cavs being 8-0, Evan Mobley has improved a little bit on the margins. He's a better shooter this season from three, especially. He upped his attempts a bit. He's remaining at about 40%, albeit it's early in the season. But I think the biggest thing is that these guys playing better helps save Donovan Mitchell's body. He doesn't have to do as much. He doesn't have to work as hard. And he's not going to be broken down when you guys get to the postseason because you did what you needed to do during the regular season and bought him that rest. So I think that raises your ceiling. And if they keep playing like this, I'm not ready to bolster them up in the East just yet. Ahead of teams I still think Philly, when they're healthy, would be better. I still think the Knicks would be better. I still think the Celtics. But if we're halfway through the season and they're still, like 30-8 or something crazy, like you might have to start reevaluating how you talk about the Cavaliers.
Yeah, man, I agree. I also think a big key to their success has been their coaching change. I think Kenny Atkinson has done a great job. Former assistant coach with the Warriors, coached the Nets from 2016 to 2020. Had a couple of good teams over there with like D'Angelo Russell and those guys. But yeah, man, I think they just look like really re-energized. Like the roster isn't really that much different from like last year. They were still like the fifth best defensive team in the league under JB Bickerstaff last year. But I think just having the new regime come in and kind of revitalize the players, and he just believed in his guys. Like you said, there was a lot of outside noise. I think we talked about it in an older episode, but there was a lot of outside noise with the trade rumors between like Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell, and I think he just bought into both of them and made it work with the arrangement that he had, and I think that both of them are playing to their highest potential. I also heard dudes come out around camp, and Darius Garland had looked like as lean and like as strong as he ever had been. Obviously, probably helping him a lot out more like the defensive end, where he struggled a lot last year. So Yeah, I think they're just like a solidly built team. You know what I'm saying? Jared Allen also is an unsung hero of the team. I think people don't talk about him as much, but he's quietly having a great defensive season. Very efficient. He had a game where he went for like 10 for 10 a couple of weeks ago, and that was crazy. So yeah, man, I think like they're just like really solidly built. Like you said, Evan Mobley, great defender, and his jump shooting is improving as well. And I think that I think that like as it stands right now, even though they're undefeated, I say they're like second or third best team in the league, like right by the Celtics and the Knicks. So we'll see how that continues to shape up as the rest of the season goes on. I know you're not as high on them in the moment, but I think I don't know. I feel like there's a reason that they're
Talk
eight
is
and zero. I feel
rising.
like that's like yeah, the talk is rising. So yeah.
I will say that. But for our last topic, we're gonna touch on very quickly before we get out of here. The Lions just traded for Za'Darius Smith, and I'm gonna. I was like, we expected them to make a move after Hutch went down. I wasn't on my phone when the news first broke, so it was a shocker to me later on in the day when I saw it. But I'm gonna let you kind of kick this one off, Brett. What are your thoughts on bringing him in, and kind of where do you see the Lions moving forward, like for the rest of the season? I want to hear your projections on having him fill Hutch's place. How do you feel about that acquisition?
Yeah, I know. I think it's a lot better than doing nothing. I think that when he's healthy, he's a great contributor, and he's had multiple seasons where he's surpassed 10 sacks. He's a little bit older. He's in the, he's heading into the twilight of his career. He's 32 years old. It isn't uncommon for defensive ends to play into their mid 30s. I would say guys like Von Miller and um what was that guy's name? Uh, uh, I forgot. But the guy that was James Harrison on the Steelers. Excuse me. He played well into his mid 30s and he was great. Um, I don't think that Za'Darius Smith is on the level of those guys necessarily, but what I've noticed throughout his career is that when you put him next to another premier edge rusher like Myles Garrett, he's been very effective, and I would like to see him back with Hutch next year as well, because I know that I think he has like an option on like the last part of his contract, and I think overall this gives us much needed depth in the defensive end position that we did not have. Josh Pascal's injured. Um, what I'm saying? Obviously, Hutch is out for the season. So we're playing with our backup defensive ends on both sides, and it's like this definitely shorts us up a lot. And I think and we didn't have to give up a lot for him. I believe the Browns are paying 85% of his salary for the season, and we only had to give up what like a fifth and a sixth round pick or
Yeah.
something of that effect. So I mean, I like the move, and I think that it puts us in a position to continue to contend. And that was really our glaring weakness that everybody, all the talking heads were talking about online. And Brad Holmes went out and fixed it. So hopefully, it's smooth sailing for the rest of the season. And also, unrelated, but Emmanuel Mosley and Fidu Malafanu just got their practice window open to get off of IR. So hopefully, with them coming back
Calvary.
in the middle of the season, yeah, exactly. The Cavaliers coming back. People are getting healthy again, and I think that gives us even more depth to our already great secondary that's playing well right now. So I'm excited to see what the defense looks like towards the end of the season.
I echo the majority of your points. I think bringing him in, like, obviously he's a little past his prime, maybe a little being generous, but he's older, but he's still a solid, above average veteran. And with our defense, I think he'll be able to come in and contribute. And you're not asking him, to be a world beater with us. Like, he's just trying to fill in and be serviceable, and that's better than what we had. So that's kind of how I felt about it. It was a good move. We didn't give up much, and we fulfilled the position that we had a need for, and that's the most you can ask. It's better than them sitting on their hands and doing nothing because they see we have the potential again this season. And right now, I think the Lions, unquestionably are the best team in the NFC right now. And I think Goff. I know this wasn't the topic, but I'm going to go on a little quick tangent here. I think he deserves to be in high considerations for the MVP honors this year. He's just been amazing. And my last kind of keynote to tie everything together before we get out of here is I genuinely think the Lions and Chiefs are on like a head-on collision course. And I think, God forbid, anything going like that. But as things stands, I think that's where we're headed for this year's Super Bowl. So fingers crossed, and no early prediction, but I have very, very high hopes for both teams, but especially the Lions.
Couldn't have said it better myself. All right, let's get us out of here. Again, we thank you all so much for tuning into the Peer Review podcast today. We really appreciate it.
Please make sure you guys share the podcast with your friends and family, as well as follow us on X at peerreview_pod and on TikTok at Peer Review Podcast to stay up to date with our latest episodes and releases.
And again, we also personally monitor all of our accounts, and we love to hear your feedback. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you think the Bucks are going to turn it around? Do you think the Cavaliers are going to just randomly fall off a cliff? Yeah, exactly. Or go 82-0. Let us know. Want us to cover different topics? Let us know in the comments. And thank you again. This is the Peer Review, signing off.